wonderful.
Yeah.
It's been too long since I've been here.
Talk about such a change of pace from New York City.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
I'm in turf that was my great-grandfather's turf, so sitting here in this room, you can see what's behind me. Okay, now I'll show.
Okay.
Greetings. Welcome to the Chelsea Land Use Committee meeting. It's great to see everyone. My name is Greg Morris. I'm the chair of the Chelsea Land Use Committee, which meets monthly. This is our May meeting. MCB4 has a hybrid policy that can be found on our website. Board members are expected to attend meetings in person unless they have a disability and/or extraordinary circumstance. Excused members and members of the public will still be able to participate virtually. Members who are joining via Zoom must leave their cameras on. Tonight's meeting is being streamed live on our YouTube channel. The transcript is being recorded. Please remember to treat each other with respect and decorum. And as I like to remind this group, as we are familiar, if disruptions affect participation or interrupt meeting business, we call a temporary recess. We recognize that because of the time, the space for us is available until 9:30. But once again, if there are any disruptions and we have to hit pause, we will go on recess until that disruption is clear so that we can continue. The space is available to us until 9:30. The agenda tonight includes a few different parts. There is an informational presentation. Wow, it's been a long day already. Okay, informational presentation. Gateway Development Commission will talk about the Hudson Tunnel project ventilation structure. That's how we'll start. Then we'll transition into public testimony. Following that, we'll have the discussion related to the presentation related to the NYC Landmarks Preservation Commission, 275 7th Avenue. That's Lefcourt Clothing Center, and David's going to lead that. Thank you, David, in advance for that. And then we're going to get updates on the MCB4 Affordable Housing Plan. Paul, you're going to do that one for us. Thank you in advance for that. We'll then do old and new business. And then, time permitting, we will switch to something called executive session. An executive session means that space and our conversation is only for board members. So the committee will meet and we will have a conversation, time permitting, related to executive session. So everyone will leave except for board members and we'll continue our conversation, time permitting, of course. Jesse, do we have our folks on? Rebecca, are your people there?
Yes, we have Jong, myself. Yeah, we are here. We're ready to present.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I recognize that you have a significant presentation to do. We welcome you. We're excited to have you. And I will go over other notes and details after our presentation, but let's get them started. Rebecca, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. My name is Rebecca Zach. I'm the Senior Director of Government and Community Affairs at the Gateway Development Commission. I want to thank Jesse and the entire team at CB4 for allowing us to present tonight and share more information about the project that we're doing. I know, Jong, you need, he is going to be walking you through a deck. I'm hoping that he's getting ready. There he is. I love all these years in, it's still kind of a little bit of a roller coaster getting set up. So Jong, why don't you let us know when you're ready? If you can hear us?
Yes, I can hear you, but just for the moment, my computer is not agreeing with this system very well. So I'm just keep clicking the sharing button and my video, it just doesn't allow me to share the screen yet. Can you hear me, actually?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes.
We can hear you, and we're checking on this side.
Okay.
Should be able to share, I'm hearing, on this side.
Yes, I'm at the share button, right in the middle on the bottom, and it just keep running and not sharing, and my video is not working. So just
okay,
yeah.
Is there
we can run the deck from here if that's helpful, Rick.
Yeah.
Actually, that's great idea. Yeah.
Okay.
My apologies.
Jesse, thank you, Jesse.
You got it. Thank you.
Just call out next slide when you're ready, and we'll work from there. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Hold on. Jesse is organizing. Our district manager is organizing
Thank
for the
you.
presentation. Thank
We
you.
appreciate it. Thank you.
We'll let them do the presentation and their questions. We'll do that in person, and then we'll do online, and we'll do our normal set of questions that we do
Thank you.
after the presentation.
Okay.
Almost there. Almost there. That's so waiting is part of life.
Fantastic.
Go ahead, Rebecca.
Okay. Okay, next slide. So, here's an agenda for the deck that we're going to be going over the overview of the plant design, the concept, and then the architecture that that makes up the structure. Next slide.
Yeah, Rebecca, can you do a quick, let's do just one more round of intros for everybody.
Oh, sure. Apologies. So,
Thank you.
again, my name is Rebecca Zach. I'm the Senior Director of Government and Community Affairs. Jong, who's going to be doing most of the presenting tonight, can you introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Jong Baek, architectural lead for the Hudson Tunnel project. Thank you.
Ben?
Hi, Ben Engel, Senior Program Manager for Program Planning at the GDC.
Thanks. And then I think the other person's Emma. Okay, I think we can start moving forward. Okay, next slide. John, I'm going to hand it over to you for the overview.
For the moment, I'm not seeing the screen that you shared yet. So my apology. But however,
So they're on slide 4.
yes.
Maybe if you can't see it, I'll say what slide they're on, and you could, if you can have.
Thank you.
I'm sure. Okay, they're on slide 4, which is the Gateway Program overview.
Yeah, so as you know, we are working on the Hudson River Tunnel project, known as a Gateway Program. As you know, it's a major, infrastructure initiative, and then we are aiming at improving the rail transportation between New Jersey and New York. You see that this orange line that indicates the length of the tunnel, the new tunnel, and then starting from the left, you can see that our portal is located far west, and right in the middle in the New Jersey side, we have one fan plant building. Going towards the east, on the right at the 12th Avenue, you can see the location of the 12th Avenue fan plant, and towards the eastern end, you see the AR fan plant. Today, we're going to focus on those, that 12th Avenue fan plant among those buildings. Next.
Next slide. Yep.
So what you see here,
Wow, it looks like we lost Jong for a second. Okay. So let's give him a second to go on, but I'm going to try to talk to this as well as I can. Okay.
Thank you,
So what
Rebecca.
you're
Do the
seeing-
best you can with it. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. The key function you're showing here is that the A is the bypass chamber, the ventilation shaft, and both B and C of kind of how air moves within the facility, kind of moving up through it. That's the main function of this facility. And then you kind of have a skim that kind of goes over it. Next slide. So we wanted to kind of go through where the tunnel location is, where the building will be. This is Amtrak acquired Block 675 back in August 2001. And in that time, we learned that a very important EMS facility was going to be also on this land. So we've been working closely with the city and the elected officials to do this. I'm sorry, I'm trying to see this. So you're seeing here where some of the locations were for the 12th Avenue fan plant originally when we were going through the FEIS process. Next slide. And then this is kind of an aerial overview of the entire lot. And so where you can see where the 12th Avenue fan plant will be. where the tunnel, where the shaft will be, and then where the future EMS building will be, just to orient you. So you have 30th Street, 29th Street, 11th and 12th, all bounding the entire area. Next slide. I would love to tell you that I could speak intelligently about the offset of this, but I think what you're seeing, and I don't know if Alex or anybody else on this has more technical knowledge that could speak more intelligently to this, that would be great. Thank you, Alex.
Go ahead, Ben.
Sure. Okay. So the last slide talked about how the fan plant is offset from the corner of the lot where the shaft is, where the circular shaft is. So what we're doing is we're building a plenum or a connector tunnel to provide airflow and circulation to the under river tunnel. The idea there was based on community feedback to create a view shed, to leave the view shed from the High Line to the river. So being on 29th Street, we're looking at the zoning envelope here. And so the building is following the M16 zoning envelope, where we have the first 85 feet in height up against the sidewalk, and then from there there are fans that are, as you saw in the previous slide, circulating air, usually passively, through these fans in the vertical direction. So the building is set back to align with the sky exposure plane for this zoning. We can go to the next slide. Rebecca, do you want me to keep going?
Oh, sorry. I'm trying to get in touch with John. Yeah, that would be great. Thank you.
Sure. So this fan plant is supporting the Hudson Tunnel, the new tunnel. It's not normally occupied. It's not a permanent work location for Amtrak employees, but it'll be accessed on a semi-regular basis for maintenance and testing. That being said, this is a very sensitive piece of infrastructure for the region, and it'll have appropriate security features such as security cameras that will cover the entire perimeter of the fence, and like any other Amtrak facility, will be monitored by Amtrak police. Moving over to air quality. So I mentioned passive air, and sorry for the baby if you hear him screaming in the background. So the passenger trains, Amtrak trains, and New Jersey Transit trains passing through the new tunnel would be electric. That's how trains are today that travel under the river between New Jersey and Penn Station. They're electric. So diesel emissions are not a concern at the tunnel portal or the fan plants. During congested conditions, so when trains are stopped or moving slowly for whatever reason, and it's getting hot in the tunnel, particularly during the summer, one low pressure fan would operate to exhaust the hot air from the tunnel, and the hot air would not be a source of air pollutants because it's not diesel trains or diesel exhaust. The trains are electric, powered by overhead catenary wires or third rail.
Next slide.
Okay, so continuing on for the day-to-day operations of the fan plant. So emergency generators, given that this is a very important piece of infrastructure, emergency generators will be installed on the roof with a sound attenuated enclosure compliant with federal, state, and local regulations. The generators, the engines for the generators will be EPA certified, ensuring compliance with local regulations, federal and state as well, and emission requirements. So as I mentioned, the generators will be tested every so often, as there are across the city. and they will not produce any significant contaminant emissions. For noise, the fan plant itself and the fans will be equipped with sound attenuators for both ventilation fans and the emergency generators, as I just mentioned. And in terms of flood mitigation, the emergency generators are going to be on the roof, as I mentioned, and that's a key element here. But because the fan plant is in a flood zone, and with a design flood elevation of 10 feet, 4.5 inches above street level, all street level doors, which we'll show in a little bit, will be flood doors to protect the building and the tunnels from flooding, and all critical equipment will be located on the second floor and above the design flood elevation. So design is ongoing right now in terms of schedule, and we expect to be completed with the design by October 2026 and start construction on the fan plant building itself in 2028 with a expected completion in 2033. Next slide. I don't know if Trung is back yet or not, but I can keep going.
Great. Thank you, Ben.
So I am not an architect, I'm a planner, but the considerations that Trung had in terms of the design concept included three areas of basis of context. The surrounding area, historical context, and the functional context. And we're going to go through each of them. Okay, so the architecture team looked at, I don't know if that was him or not. Okay, I'll keep going. The architecture team looked at the neighboring area and the different buildings that are along the waterfront to try to make sure that this fan plant, this building, while prominent, worked cohesively with the other buildings in the neighborhood. Next slide. Okay. Historical context.
Yeah, that's still.
Oh, okay. I think we skipped the slide.
Please keep going. Yeah.
So in terms of historical context, and I don't know where the slide went, but historical context, the architecture team looked at three different types of facilities that are currently existing that are similar to the fan plant there we go. Thank you. The Holland Tunnel ventilation tower that was built in 1927, we're all fairly familiar with. It served a similar function as the new Hudson River Tunnel 12th Avenue fan plant. The Lincoln Tunnel ventilation tower that was built in 1954, and the North River Tunnel ventilation, which is embedded in this office building that's been recladded. So the difference being between the Holland and the Lincoln and ours is that it's for trains, but trying to use the historical brick as a context of the building that we're looking to implement on the west side. Trung,
Then actually I came
over, right?
I'm sorry that technology doesn't allow me. Can you hear me, right?
Yes.
Yes. Thanks for explaining that the concept, Ben. For the time being, can I take over?
Please do.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
So this historical context, right? This building is extremely rare building types. So you don't see that this building type many times in Manhattan. However, this building is just there, and to make sure that the safety of the passenger, millions of passenger every day traveling between the New York and New Jersey, you're not going to be an exception for the beneficiary of this building type. So with that, we do believe that we need to maintain this legacy. So from an architectural point of view, as Ben pointed out, the one common architectural item from all three buildings is going to be the brick. But we are not going to use brick as it is. We're going to use a terracotta which I believe that terracotta is the modern interpretation of the brick. So that's our concept from the historical context. Next. So let's take a look at this building from the functional context a little more in detail. Next. So you see here that you're looking at the overall, the bird's eye view, and then you can actually notice that the middle building is in a 12th Avenue fan plan, and orange denotes that is in a tunnel. So we are looking at this building, it is a ventilation building. The primary function of the building fan plan is ventilation and exhaust air from the tunnel system. But building on that idea, we actually asked ourselves, what if we just could express this aerodynamic movement of the air through the architecture itself? Or what if the facade could visually convey that the core function of the facility? So if you go to the next. So to build on that, we look at then how air actually moves, specifically the aerodynamic pattern on flow created by the trains as they pass through the tunnel. As the train push forward, and air wraps around it in the smooth and very graceful and curved form, we translate that movement into the modular aluminum panel system. So where that the subtle shift in various angles can actually evoke the motion and airflow. The result is the facade that embodies the function of the fan plan while creating the powerful yet the simple architectural statement, as you see on the right side. You will see that in the actual rendering very well a little later. If you go next. So from the overall volume, we can actually envelope overall this the core concrete box with the one plane, but it's gonna be just too big. So we actually develop into the 3 different volume so that it actually comes to you with a more like a human scale. Next. So you're going to start to see now the design. So this is the view actually from the 29th Street, a little bit northeastern way. And then you see the building without any architectural, the envelope. It means that the pure functional concrete box. I mean, you can see that, you can tell, how ugly it will be without it, right? So then if you go to next. So now with an envelope, all this concept we explained so far, it's gonna look like this. On the south facade, these 3 different, broke up, the facade will actually house this beautifully rotated angle a little by little to actually create the gentle, fluid, graceful curvature. And that will evoke that actually the core function of the ventilation building. If you go next. From the 12th Avenue point of view, now you're looking at the west facade. This west facade, we discussed about our main facade material will be this terracotta system. We're gonna use that with these 3 different types, so that we can actually, these are the accent horizontal lines right there. That's gonna be our baguette system onto our terracotta facade system. So that actually mimics the airflow pattern. Let's go next. From the north point of view, now this is the rendering from the high line, which is probably the most important, the design. And obviously, we discussed about this building is not normally occupied building. It means that no one will live there, and thus there is no window whatsoever. So now our biggest concern from the community point of view, then it's gonna be on a dark volume in the night. How can we illuminate? Is there any we can illuminate, beautifully so that it can be an object, you can actually visually appreciate, not just the dark volume, So if you go to next. See, this is an aerodynamic flow pattern. Actually, we going to actually celebrate that within our, the lighting fixture, nicely embedded onto this terracotta panel system. And then you see that, this is an option 2 from the site location point of view. Then option 1 that I explained is actually, if we go, when with that option, this building is located more like on the right side, then you can imagine that it will block the, the river view from that high line. If you go to next. So that's not an exception for the, main south facade. You see that during the day, you can see that beautifully, fluid pattern onto the facade. And then in the night, next. Yes, with a very softly illuminated pattern from the behind, I think you can actually appreciate this building more, probably more than the day, And then as you notice that, you see that, please look at the bottom, right at the street level. We intentionally put a little bit brighter away so that, it can actually, ensure the security during the day for any pedestrian walking by. If you go next. And then now we are zooming into the 29th Street, the facade. This building will have the many different types of the doors, but we actually nicely integrated with the fan system so that you can actually not notice, that this where is the actual entrance. It's a part of our way to discourage the people, to enter the building. And also that, we're talking about like, the community-oriented design, that let's illuminate this volume, in the night. That's an hour, the community-oriented design number 1. Please the focus on the mid-bay. Then mid-bay, actually the Amtrak is thanks to Amtrak, they allow us to have the kind of the canvas for the arts. So that as a part of an art installation program, we plan to provide this canvas for the community. So, it can be very world famous artist. Actually, the art can be installed here, or it can be celebrated by the local artist. We'll discuss in detail later. If you go next. So now looking at that idea from the pedestrian eye level point of view, this is what you're going to see. Just looking at the mid-bay, that will be, it's showing like an hour just imaginary arts, but, it can be, any arts, program from either local or, a different way. So then let's go next. So other idea is that, we've been thinking about, and personally, I have never done it before, but this is a great idea. The Amtrak and GDC and then our design team actually, brainstorm. Can we just give this an opportunity for community to select the color of the building? So we brainstorm internally. We actually nailed down the 3 color option of the building for you: salmon, cinnamon, and the limestone. If you go to next. So you've been looking at this building from the cinnamon color in point of view. So that's the cinnamon. Next. That's a salmon, who wouldn't like the, the salmon, grilled salmon or, or sushi. But next. And the limestone, limestone is more like a neutral, the gray. So if you go to next. Now you can see that this, the comparison between the 3 different colors, so that, how actually, can the community select this different color. I think GDC will come up with an idea, to actually for community's involvement. So please, stay in tune. You're going to get excited to have an opportunity to select the color of this building. If you go to next. So that's the end of our building, and, quick just the overview of our design. But before we end for the, the questions and answers, we actually created a quick animation, I hope that you like it. Next. I think if you go to the next.
If they have the PDF, then they won't have it.
Oh, I see. Okay. So then opportunity, I think it will be fading away.
Well, we
Yeah,
can follow.
yeah.
They put together a really fun animation, Jesse, and the land use committee. We can send that to you so you can see that and share it with everybody. It's kind of exciting to see.
Yeah, share that and we'll definitely take a look at it.
Great.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks.
Great. Okay.
And thank you for being so patient with us and any technological problems that we were experiencing, John. We were so glad you were able to get that back because they handed the baton to me, and that's just not my strong suit in terms of talking about airflow and a ventilation shaft. So I appreciate Ben pitching in too, and that's the end of the formal part of that. And we'll any questions or any comments, we're happy to take that. So I just want to say thanks for the patience.
No problem. You were able to navigate a challenging circumstance technologically and otherwise. Thank you very much. Okay, committee, questions from the committee. Paul, we'll start here, and then Dave will jump to you, and then we'll jump back.
Hey all, thanks so much. Paul Devlin here. First, those of you who remember Tina DiFacilitano, she would always ask for public art on these public spaces. So thrilled to see that component put in at street level. Two questions. Have you taken into consideration what the empty space and the remaining parts of block 675 might be? I expect it might be residential on the remaining portion of that block surrounding the fan building, and how would that interact with a new building? And is there a way to shrink the size of the fan building such that we could have more land to build more houses? That's question one.
Do you want us to do them one at a time?
Sure.
Okay. Alex, right, I know you're on this too, if you want to speak to this at all. And my understanding of this, so Amtrak, owns the actual lot, and that whatever development or comes in the future, I think Amtrak has expressed willingness to have those conversations in terms of that property. And from what I understand, and John, maybe you could speak a little bit more to this in terms of shrinking, I think we have to have it at a certain height in order to have all the benefits of the fan plant. But maybe you could speak a little bit more to in terms of what might be challenges for shrinking it. And Alex, I don't know if you want to talk about some development on the property.
John, go first.
Okay. John?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yep.
Thank God. Yeah.
We can hear you.
Yes, so thanks for the question. And then with the current location, the inside of the building is actually that the building is housing 7 fan plants to make sure that ventilation works. So in a way that, that 7 fan plant actually determines almost like a footprint of the building. So due to the functionality, probably that's the absolute minimum that we can actually provide to you. From the height point of view, then you can imagine that, any building or overbuild can top of this building, that the structural, challenge is going to be the humongous, to actually locate in any residential or office, the program at the height of the 183 feet. So due to that, we are not recommending that using that footprint as the overbuild. Alex, you can actually start to talk about the other area that, for the future developer, possibly. Yeah.
Sure, happy to. So just to introduce myself, Alex Wright, Senior Director, Hudson Tunnel Project, Amtrak. And so, Rebecca, I think you said it very well. Our first focus right now is to get the Hudson Tunnel constructed and operational. Once that happens, we would definitely be looking to collaboratively work with not only GDC, New York State, and the community members to be able to facilitate development of the remaining space that's not utilized for the function of the Hudson Tunnel. So.
Thanks for that. I just would point out that the visuals showed a perspective of the fan building from the High Line, and we would hope that that's not the view that they see 20 years from now or 30 years from now, but we have some other construction on there. So just to take that into consideration would be helpful. My other question is just technical, and this is out of ignorance. Are all New Jersey Transit and Long Island Railroads electrified, and none of them are also diesel at this point? Because if we have any other trains going through those tunnels besides Amtrak, especially as the northern tunnel is closed for repair, do we need to worry about any other diesel engines running through those tunnels?
Good question.
Rebecca, would you like me to take that?
Oh, actually, I actually just was saying to myself, that's a good question because I don't know.
Yeah,
that's a good question.
To my knowledge, Long Island Railroad does not run their trains through the existing North River tunnels and would not be running their tracks through completely to the other side of the tunnel or the new tunnels. But yes, the New Jersey Transit and Long Island Railroad trains are electrified that would be running through the tunnels.
And emergency diesel engines that would have to, if electric goes out and you need to use a diesel through there?
I would have to get back to you on that.
Yeah.
Hi, thanks for the presentation. I think it's really exciting the way you're developing a concept from the function of the building. I wonder if its skin could be even more sculptural, and I'm thinking of the Spring Street salt shed next to the West Side Highway, which is also a utilitarian building that was given a very sculptural skin because there's a lot of latitude in what that skin can be. Did you look at any options that included, say, a perforated metal outer skin, something that could be semi-transparent and breathable so that there'd be a kind of a layered and deep effect where you see through to the more functional interior part? And maybe that skin can be even more sculptural than what you're presenting.
I can take that
Great.
question to answer. Yes, and internally, we look at the many options, not just between the design team with an Amtrak, the actually users. The consensus, among those many options, yes, we did have a more translucent, the concept. However, that this building is a highly security sensitive building, unlike that the salt, depot. So in a way that not to reveal that inside the location of the, this major fan plan, the louvers is more ideal. So however, we understand the bit of the translucency is actually quite pleasing to, the any pedestrian eyes. We know that as an architect. So that's why that if you look at the west side, that an area that we can possibly create any translucency, that we created that with an terracotta baguette. You might, you're familiar with the terracotta baguette system. It means that it's just bar and to allow that, certain open area so that you can actually the bed is, you can, kind of see through, but not really know what's going on behind it, that type of things. So yes, that's my answer for your, suggestion.
Okay, thank you. And also at street level, it seems to me like, the design could benefit from animating that surface that pedestrians are going to be right next to. You mentioned that it might be part of an art program. Is there any way of introducing a certain amount of depth there? I mean, ideally, we'd maybe even have some retail along there, very shallow. I'm just thinking of anything that could make it something other than a kind of a flat, impervious wall. I mean, could it be shallow display cases for rotating art exhibits, maybe by students, something that relates to the nearby art gallery district?
We're open to like concepts that you guys want to float by us. I do want to stress though, kind of like the security sensitivity with this building and trying to maintain that's its, first its function and then its security, making sure it's a safe location and that kind of what type of art that we would do that might attract anything that we might not want. But I will say this, that I think we want to make sure that we're having those conversations with the community, and then we're taking your input and like kind of seeing what would be possible and the most feasible for how this building has to function and what the community would want. I know it's a longer term discussion, but I just want to relay kind of our openness to it. And I think it might be a little early for us to say what concepts may or may not work without seeing things a little bit more fleshed out. But, you know, let's have more of those conversations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you for the presentation. I've actually seen this before, and thanks for including some of the comments from the round one, like flood mitigation. I just have, can you explain a little bit about the noise level and what it means that you're ensuring compliance with local, state, and federal requirements? Like, I just want to get a sense of like what is the noise level when you're sort of on the ground walking by?
John, do you have any more? Good.
Yes,
Go ahead.
yes,
Thank
yes.
you.
Thank you for the, the questions. And this noise level, there's a, as far as I know, there are two sources of the equipments that will actually create the noise. The one is the fan plant itself, housed inside of the building. But I mean, we cannot show all these engineering details, but what we can tell you is that we have an attenuator and the top and bottom of the fan plant so that it can actually mitigate the noise level quite down. And the other source isn't actually the source of the noise, could be the emergency generator. But the emergency generator itself, we are not just putting the generator on top of our roof. It will actually be enveloped with a factory installed, sort of the clean white box, and then equipped with an attenuator itself, so that if you ask me actually the noise level, I mean, it's gonna be, it's gonna be quiet. What I can tell you is that, it will be quieter than normal, the New York City, the street noise level, which is around the 90 decibel. And then our noise level is gonna be a lot lower than that. Yeah.
And John, if I could just add to that, our final environmental impact statement record of decision requires that the equipment included in this facility, the 12th Avenue fan plant, to be designed to have noise levels no greater than 65 decibels at the facade of the nearest residential building, which is quite close, obviously, on the same block as us. And 65 is, somewhere between a quiet conversation and a quiet street. So it is designed to be pretty quiet.
I appreciate that. Thank you. I want to know if you guys are committing to the amount of trees I see in the renderings on the street.
Yes, I can take that question. So in the rendering, in just right in front of our building itself, we actually plan to provide only one. I think don't get me wrong, we didn't, I mean, we understand the communities an idea about the trees, as many as possible idea. However, this is a machine for building, is the building for machine. And then we do have a lot of utility coming in from the 29th Street and going into the building. So due to that an issue, we can only provide one so far. Yeah.
Right. So if you can move the Con Ed vault into the interior of the building, then you can maybe plant more trees outside.
So yes, we actually look at the possibility, but in the basement level, I really hope that I wish that we can just share the the drawing. However, we cannot, right, due to the security reason. But we cannot house and locate that the electrical board inside of our building. So, I mean, I hope that you can understand that. Yeah.
And but doesn't that mean there's other opportunities that we could plant trees in other places within Community Board 4, but maybe not particularly here? Do I have that right?
Yes,
Right. Yeah.
thanks, Rebecca, for mentioning that way. So we do have an obligation, actually. Every 20 feet, we do have an obligation, providing, to provide the trees. So now we cannot, due to the functionality and the security reason, what we can do by the code, we have to provide either those three other trees to other location, or we can actually pay for that the trees. So by the code, we do have an obligation, so we can entertain either option. Yeah.
Thank you. I think that this board will push back and ask you to try to find ways to plant more trees. So just a heads up on that. And then my last question is, and I know that we floated this to you before. It came from Christine, actually, in transportation. And I'm just thinking of the North River Tunnel structure that's embedded in a building. Can we not embed this in a building that has housing, affordable housing? That's my last question. I know it's the big one.
John, that's about the overbuild.
Yes, I think this is related to the overbuild, the opportunity. That you understand our building is 185 feet. It's an equivalent to the 18-story buildings. So you can imagine that, putting locating the residential building on top of that, our building is gonna requires, heavily structurally challenging, design. And then due to the reason, and another issue is that, that the residential, below the residential, let's say that we can put it there, but, this is a ventilation building, so that, this is an emission issue, and it's not going to be suitable for the program. So, but the structural challenge is going to be, huge, to overcome for any developer or city.
John, I just don't know if that's just me, but John, your connection's cutting in and
We
out
can
a
hear,
little bit.
we can
And
hear.
okay,
Yeah,
thanks.
thank you. I'm just wondering, are you saying that then it's like structurally impossible?
I think
Yeah, I'm looking to find the information. Sorry, I'm looking at my email right now to find the exact information that we sent to Christine and other members, so we can speak to that. If you could just give me a second.
Rebecca, while you
Or
do that,
if there's more you want to see. Yeah, thanks.
yeah, Rebecca, while you do that, I just want to add that the fan plant that's in the existing building, it serves a different purpose. It serves a different area or length of tunnel, and we are planning, as we showed earlier in the slides, a fan plant in A yard. That's the Penn Station Railroad Yard between 9th and 10th Avenue, and that's going to be embedded on the underside of the 450 West 33rd Street building, and that will serve that part of the tunnel, from really the land side portion of the tunnel. So it's smaller in size. The 12th Avenue fan plant, similar to the Holland or the Lincoln, is serving a much greater distance into the middle of the river. And one of the reasons why it has 7 fans is we're talking about 24 trains, electric trains per hour in the peak direction. So we have to support the air circulation for those number of trains in, not to get too technical, in vent zones. So 1 train per vent zone through the tunnel. And the Holland, the Lincoln, they have vent facilities that go into the river as well as landside buildings. And so 12th Avenue fan plant in this respect, because the environmental impacts of having a fan plant in the middle of the river. Those times have come and gone in terms of us building that type of infrastructure in the middle of the Hudson River. And I don't think any one of us would want to see that in the Hudson River. That's where we get the sizing to support these 7 fans. Rebecca, did you want to add?
You see now that the fan plant needs to be constructed and designed to a higher level of fire safety and security than a commercial or residential building. An overbuild would also need to be designed to those same levels, leading to an inefficient design for the overbuild, as it would require larger structural members and decrease available floor space. We think that it would also require larger columns and beams, and limiting the potential for development on the remainder of the site. And then the fans inside the building are capable of functioning in both supply and exhaust mode, which requires a very specific technical configuration and physical separation to maintain safety in the event of a fire. The current design that we're showing here tonight achieves that through the staggered roof. And I can resend that's helpful in terms of specifics for the feedback that we've given for an overbuild. And I think, Carrie, is that you in the room that's asking the questions, if I'm hearing the voice correctly?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, Carrie.
That would be great if you could send that. Thank you.
No problem.
Hi, my name's Rodney Washington. In addition to the community board, can you talk to the outreach to the neighborhoods 29th, 30th, 28th Street?
Particular to the fan plant or just in general?
Yes, fan plant.
Well, we've talked to the High Line. We briefed the committee chairs before this meeting, and then this is our first public foray into showing the current design of the fan plant.
So I guess my question more specifically is, will you reach out to those residential buildings?
Yes, and yes, we will. And I mean, there's a future opportunity here in terms of what the exterior will look like. I know John talked about it for a second in terms of limestone, terracotta, and cinnamon. So we see kind of an opportunity in the future. And since this isn't being constructed for several more years, an opportunity in the future to engage with the community on that type of aspect of the design of like the color on the outside. So yes, we're happy to engage. And if there's anyone that you think we're not engaging with and that we should be engaging with, we're happy to do that. The more people that know about what we're doing, the better. I'd like to avoid surprises as much as we can. We know there's a lot happening in Community Board 4, particularly on the west side. And we know that you guys have to manage through a lot of construction.
Thanks.
Hi, my name is Hector Vasquez. Thank you for a really terrific presentation. I was looking forward to the animation, but I guess I'm going to hold off on that.
I know, I'm so bummed about it because it's so good.
You were hyping it up so much. Now I want to see it. My question is, as far as safety protocols, in case of a catastrophic failure, do you guys have coordination with the EMS offices that are nearby, the station that's being set up nearby, or were they consulted in the design concepts and the safety measures that are put in place?
I don't know if anyone else on the team could speak a little bit more to that, but I will just say this on the outset like a general term in terms of talking to our safety and security team. There's a tremendous amount of engagement, and that's happening with, I think, all inappropriate agencies that we need to be talking to, and making sure, since this is such a highly sensitive piece of infrastructure, that is helping move, a massive piece of infrastructure that we're building, that we want to make sure that any and all NYPD, FDNY, anyone that needs to know about this building and how it will operate and how they need to respond to will be engaged with. And I don't know if Alex or John have anything more to say, or anyone else on the team have more to say about that, but the security and safety of this building is obviously a top concern for ours and a focus. I don't know if anyone wants to build on that.
Just a question, how often, I mean, it is a mechanical structure, obviously, moving parts. How often, I mean, obviously you'll have I guess, computer programs and monitoring stations all around it to make sure there's nothing out of the ordinary happening. But how often do you foresee like it having to be repaired or maintained or anything like that?
Alex, do you have any insight into that? It's your
So
facility.
yeah, no, absolutely. And so it is a normally an unmanned facility or unpersoned facility. But there will be people going to it and it is monitored as you indicated. As far as maintenance, yes, routine maintenance is done, but there's not an intent to overhaul it for a very long time. Obviously, we're building it right now. So, but
Hector, is that your name?
Yeah.
Hector. But I think your question is there a regular schedule in terms of the maintenance of this building? Is that what you're trying?
Yeah,
And
Rebecca, to answer
but we
that
might
question,
not.
yeah.
I just want to say, but we might not know the answer off the top of our head tonight. So
Yeah.
I just want to say,
We're
have
very
Emma
early.
on our team
Yeah.
here who's making notes. So anything that we can't answer in real time, we can follow up with. And I think in terms of the maintenance of the building, I think we can follow up with a little bit more of a fleshed out response for you.
Yeah,
I think that makes sense, Rebecca. Yeah.
Okay.
yeah, that'd be great because my concern is that to be more proactive and not wait for a breakdown and something catastrophic to happen, and then you will have an issue.
Yeah, obviously that's a scenario we want to avoid too.
Right.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thanks a lot.
But thank you for raising that. Because I feel like now we should have had that in the deck. So, okay. You learn every time you present stuff.
Martin Ducat here. Hi, you all. Thanks for the presentation. I am particularly appreciative of the care that you're taking to make this thing look, I don't know, what's the right word? Pretty.
Cool.
Yeah, cool. That's fine. I like cool.
Me too.
And I understand that it's a work in progress. And I just want to start my question with that kind of praise. I have concern about generator emissions, even though you say that you're using the best, the most up-to-date technologies that produce the least amount of emissions. That will change over time, I'm sure. I have concern about that. And I have a concern about the feeling I got from the slides that the building is separated from the community, even with the art on it. The first floor with pedestrians walking in front of it is a divide between the community and the building itself. Now, I understand that you have safety and security concerns, but it struck me, and I think David hinted at this earlier, that if you could include some active use of the front space, like art galleries, small spaces where there is an actual connection between the building and the community, I think that would move the building a long way. And then the art around the building could be integrated with that.
I appreciate that, Marty, and I understand kind of why the community would like to see the building as kind of woven into itself as much as possible. I think we kind of need to come back to you with a little bit more of a fleshed out answer, especially from our Amtrak partners. This will be their infrastructure at the end of the day. So, let us take that back. I appreciate that.
Thank you for even that.
Oh, you want to talk about but I want to go back to the generator. Can we talk about that for a second? Because I understand, and please correct me if I'm wrong, anyone else here, is that those would only be run in the case like a power failure.
Emergencies,
and that you'd have regular testing. I understand that, but it's not something that we're expecting to run unless it absolutely has to be run. That's
correct. That's correct,
okay.
Rebecca.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that if that wasn't clear, I wanted to make sure it was clear.
I think that was clear to me, and even
Okay.
in those test periods, there are emissions to be concerned with, and you're coming back to us about the probability that diesel engines will be going through the tunnel for repairs, emergency situations. So there are circumstances where air emissions are of concern, and I know that's also your concern. So I'm voicing it so that you hear it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thanks, Marty.
Let's go online. Pam, you're up.
Okay. You can see me and you can hear me, yeah?
Perfect. all you.
Okay, all right. First, just from my many years of experience as a building manager, I look at that structure and I see, if I'm correct, interpreting it, louvers, all the whole building is louvers, and they are all sort of tilted up. It looks to me like that building could become the city's largest pigeon coop. And what have you thought about to prevent this from happening? That's one question. And the other has to do with the ventilation from the tunnel. Those are powerful fans that pull stuff from the tunnel. Is it pulling particulate matter into this tower? And if so, are there filters that would capture PFAS, for example, brake linings, things of that nature? Am I making this up? Those are my questions. Pigeons are the big deal.
First time I've heard that.
I can take.
I'll take a look at it.
No, Pam, that, can you hear me?
I can.
No, I'm saying that because I'm surprised. I'm surprised it hasn't come up since so far. Go ahead, John.
Rebecca, that, my apology that I didn't discuss every nitty-gritty, our considerations with you, but, with an Amtrak, Pam, your question is the very first question, actually, the Amtrak asked us, how we can actually avoid this bird issue, right? So, you're right. You actually have a very keen eyes. Those the airfoil louvers on the south facade, yes, it's tilted slightly back. And then we actually investigated many different options to actually, for deterrent system. And then we actually arrived at the conclusion that we're gonna put the bird wire. I mean, it's not seen on on our rendering right now, but in detail, you can imagine that the stainless steel bird wire is
I'm sorry, I'm not quite understanding the term. Board wire? What does
bird
that?
wire, yeah.
Bird wire, sorry.
It's just the string over the stainless steel.
Oh, I know, I'm very familiar with it.
Yes. So we're gonna, install that on top of each louvers, yes.
On a 186-foot tall building, you're gonna do wires.
Yes.
Okay, that's a lot of bird wire. All right, that answers my question. Somebody's thought about it and somebody's thought of what the solution might be, but you're creating a condition you might be able to avoid in some other way. I don't know. The other question about particulate matter from the tunnels being introduced into the tower, into the ventilation tower. How is that? Is that a possibility? And if so, what can you do? Are there filter systems in place, and are they cleaned or replaced, or what's the story?
For your second question, I think we have to get back to you with our engineers, So Rebecca, we can actually address her second question later. Yeah.
Just real quick, Pam, it's the new tunnels will be similar to the existing tunnels as they are today. So it's ambient air, but yes, we will get back to the board with regards to a couple questions with regards to air quality.
Okay, sort of the difference is that this building is in the middle of a residential part of town, and it's going to get a whole lot more residential with a whole lot more big, tall buildings right on top of it. That thing is going to be venting from the tunnels into the middle of that. So it's a much more critical question than it would be for the existing tunnels, like for example, towers, for example, the ventilation towers for the Lincoln Tunnel. I would not want to live right next to the top in an apartment on the whatever floor that would be more or less parallel to the top of that building.
Thank you. We'll follow up with more information about particulate matter, which is, I think, the key words that I was hearing from you.
That's the key word, particulate matter.
Thank you, Pam. Thank you, Pam.
And including PFAS, which and asbestos and stuff like that comes from automobile brakes.
Got it.
Tiny. They're really tiny.
Yeah, I'm sure.
They're really hard to capture.
Yep.
Thank you, Pam. Thank you very much. Any other clue board members online want to have any questions? I don't see any hands up at this moment.
Hi, Chair. It's Brad Pascarella.
There's one. Go ahead, Brad.
Quick question. So they're going to be venting. Is it possible to put up some type of wind turbine there to get some power out of it? Like the tulip turbine?
I don't know if anyone else has any feedback on turbine power for that right now. I think that's something we haven't heard before, Brad. Thanks for bringing it up. That feels like like that's the moment we're living in now, right? People are looking for alternative energy supply. So I think that we'll have to come back to you on that in terms of that. But thank you for asking it.
Any other questions online from Clue members? Great. Just to reiterate and build on that point, I got a message from I got a message to make reference to the potential for future energy recovery. I think that was referenced in that last question. So obviously this body is particularly interested in the future and how it is that we're going to have good options and good alternatives. So I expect that you will continue to update us on your progress, both in terms of what this project is and how it's unfolding, but also how it's going to maintain and focus on all the right sort of future opportunities to ensure the health and safety of the community and using energy in the right way to support this project. Is that fair to say, Rebecca?
I think that's fair to say. Alex, is that Amtrak from an Amtrak perspective? Is that fair for you? I think that's fair, Jesse. We want to make sure we're engaging and getting feedback and providing feedback as much as possible.
And again, because of the timeline involved as well, I think it's understanding that as this happens over the course of time, technology and other strategies may change or evolve in terms of ensuring that this is going to have the best potential for the best results. So just want to highlight that as well in terms of.
It's a good note. There's this is the moment in time we're in, and that'll be very different 20 years from now.
That's right.
Yeah, I totally get it. Thank you.
On that note, I'd like to close this informational session and extend my gratitude for this presentation. Lots of moving parts.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that.
Thank you very much to CB4 and the committee and everybody who joined. We really appreciate your time and everything today. Pam, have a great time in Tennessee.
Thank you.
And there were a number of follow-up questions too when we were documenting and noting that. So I know you were taking notes.
Us too.
So were we. We expect follow-up. I want to report that back to the Clue committee. And also we expect to see animation. I think everyone's waiting to see that particular animated section for our
I think we can send the link after this, and if you want to distribute that to everybody, and then if you want to do live reactions, you can tell us how much people were blown away by the animation. We love feedback, so we really appreciate it.
I promise you we will have questions about the animation as well. And whatever you shared with Christine, you said you would share with us as well.
I will share. I thought I had everyone on. I'll re-up it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great night.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good week.
Bye.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to pivot to public testimony at this time. I'm grateful and appreciative that we have folks in the room. As you know, when we do public testimony, it's a 2-minute section to do your public testimony. As a reminder, we want to make sure that this is a respectful environment. We want to make sure that both your thoughts, insight is shared in a way that is meaningful and respectful to this particular audience in the room and online. On that note, public testimony. Here's the setup. It's going to be Alexa first, Jackie in the 2 spot, Miguel, you're in 3. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And we're going to have you do it from the podium so we can get you on camera. Alexa, do me a favor and introduce yourself before you start, and I'll start the timer, okay?
My name is Alexa Cruz. I'm a tenant from Chelsea Elliot, and I continue saying the same thing over and over and over again. Save Section 9, no demolition, and I was listening to that. It was very interesting. And I don't understand how the city is building high rises when the land is shrinking like 1/4 of an inch every year. So it's not good for New York. Thank you.
Good question, and thank you for that. Appreciate it. Jackie, the floor is yours. Miguel, you're up next. You're on deck, okay? do me a favor, introduce yourself before you start, okay?
Hi, my name is Jacqueline Lara, and I'm from Fulton Houses. I'm here to speak on the elected officials. You know, we have Congress Nadler that's been in office for 35 years and never has done anything for Fulton and Chelsea or the community. Senator Hoylman, 13 years, hasn't done anything for us as well. And then we have Tony Simone and Mark Levine that have been here for 3 years and are still diaper training. And Eric Botcher, for our boy Eric Botcher, I don't know what's going on with him, but he needs to listen to the residents because we're against the demolition. We don't want demolition. And I want to ask these elected officials what happened to of the people, by the people, and for the people. We voted them in, and they're supposed to listen to us. That's their job, to listen to the residents who voted for him. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jackie. Miguel, you're up. Okay, okay. After Miguel, by the way, just do me a favor, introduce folks. After Miguel finishes, it's Ellen, Salinas, and Lydia.
Hi, I'm Miguel Acevedo, tenant associate president of Robert Fulton Houses. I want to congratulate this board, the community, on the Hudson Rail Yards as the casino's gone and what we've been asking for 2009. I just want to make a quick statement on that. The NYCHA Fulton Houses Tenant Association supports the latest version for the Western Rail Yards, which brings long overdue investments to the west side that will directly benefit our community. This project includes new public school, expanded public accessible green space, and thousands of good paying union jobs, all of which will straighten our neighborhood and improve quality of life for NYCHA residents. The restoration of the site plan to reflect the community-driven 2009 version shows that our voices have been heard. For years, residents of Fulton, Elliot, Chelsea, and surrounding NYCHA campuses have fought to ensure that large-scale developments deliver meaningful community benefits. This project reflects that advocacy in action. We look forward to continuing to work with our elected leaders and city agencies to make sure that these commitments are fulfilled and that public housing residents are at the center of the West Side future. Thank you.
Miguel, can you do me a favor? Can you just introduce the folks?
My name is George Figueroa.
Waiki from Fulton.
Larry Rosado, Vice President, Tenant Association. Hector Vasquez, acting as Fulton resident right now.
One other thing I want to bring up is I want to thank Hector for the services that we see all these ships out here that he is. He is a veteran and he has done a lot for us. Thank you, Hector.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Salinas, you're up. Salinas and then Lydia. Salinas, do me a favor, just introduce yourself and then you can start, okay?
Yes, Salinas Miranda. I'm here to announce that at the Elliot Chelsea Houses, we now have a full board. I've been nominated as second vice president with no contestants. We are a board that's made up of tenants who oppose the FEC proposal. Our representation of the Elliot Chelsea Houses who are saying no to demolition. And the TA leader we had prior was not part of the process. There was no resident engagement because she never voiced her opinions nor wanted to have a discussion. She left it up to Miguel, who's not our TA leader. She had also stopped having monthly meetings and only held a meeting to host Essence Company. FEC Tenants Against Demolition is an actual representation of the Fulton and Elliot Chelsea community who are vehemently against demolition. We have proven with our petition of 949 signatures against the demolition of our NYCHA homes. It has also been proven with our consistent turnout at the community board meetings, town hall meetings, public hearings, and most recently, DEIS meeting. This hearing was very impactful with the participation of many FEC tenants voicing our opposition against demolition. There were also residents of the community who were also passionate in stopping this unjust demolition proposal. NYCHA are claiming resident-led, but chose not to listen to the very residents who are saying no. HUD, I'm sure you're paying attention. You cannot approve an application to demolish NYCHA in Chelsea. It would be a demolition against our will. I'm sure many of you know by now there will be no casino at the Hudson Rail Yards. Wind Resource and Related Company is backing away from the casino at the Hudson Yards. Related will push for a 4,000 unit housing development, where only the minimum of 10% will be affordable housing. The claims of a housing crisis and 10% out of 4,000 is not enough. The goal should be to increase the percentage and leave us at Fulton Elliot and Chelsea houses alone.
Time's leaves.
Okay,
Go ahead.
time is up.
Get wrap it up.
Yeah, I also, we need to have a discussion because we need an explanation. I want to know why, we want to know why Byron is not on the board. If anything happened, we're demanding, we want him back.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And congratulations on your new responsibility. Just introduce yourself and then you can start.
Hi, Lydia Andre, Chelsea Neighbors Coalition. This community is concerned about the continued independence of community boards and their sacred mission to represent all of the voices in the community. We are alarmed by elected officials engaging in abuses of power to remove selected voices that do not agree with them. I also want to ask the community board to please update us on the plans to hold a town hall on behalf of the residents of Chelsea. We have been patiently waiting for you to do so. And as time is marching on, and we have just responded to the DEIS, we need that to be set up as soon as possible. And I want to close by reading you a quote from Eric Botcher, our councilman. This is on the Western Rail Yards. Quote, public hearings were announced with short notice and almost no outreach. That is absolutely unacceptable. Our communities deserve a fully transparent, inclusive process, not decisions made behind closed doors. I stand with my colleagues in urgently calling on the commission to extend the timeline and hold additional public hearings so that every resident's voice is heard and considered at every stage of this process. Okay, let's apply that to the NYCHA projects too. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anyone online? Any public testimony from online? I just see familiar faces. Okay. Okay. On that note, I'm going to use the chair's discretion and invite Viren. There. We appreciate that. We appreciate that. And on that note, I want to thank you, Viren, for your service to this committee, the opportunity to get to know you. I really genuinely appreciate every effort and commitment you have made. I appreciate your words and how it is that you have expressed yourself, prepared for meetings, shared content over the course of time. At our last board meeting in particular, I think what you put forward was critical and was incorporated into our response in the DEIS, along with a number of other comments and suggestions and thoughts that you have had. I just want to note for this particular body at this particular moment, and I appreciate the effort that you're going to make to communicate to the board. I just want to note to this body, when I was advised about the determination related to your status, I expressed my disappointment, I expressed my frustration, and I reached out to you directly to say, I want to continue to find ways to work with you because that has been valuable to this committee and this board. Thank you. The chair's discretion. Now you should do it on mic. Do it on mic.
Something extremely important that I really need to say today. Community Board 4 is the most powerful voice in city of New York. We are actually sitting on top of most important infrastructure. Don't lose your voice, guys. Never lose your voice, ever. Like I'm going to quote my dad, keep your friends close, but people you don't agree with, keep them closer because you learn something or the other from them. So thank you. You guys are very strong. Stay strong. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Much appreciated. Much appreciated. Much appreciated. Okay. Let's move forward. We're going to close the public testimony at this point, and I'm going to hand the mic over to you, David. And you can tee us up for this particular conversation. This is again, in terms of being a committee that wants to be responsive, there is a Landmark Preservation Commission thing tomorrow morning, right? So in preparation for that, you're going to talk to us about what it is that you're going to testify about in relation to this particular project. Is that fair? Floor is yours.
Right. A while ago, the Landmarks Commission actually approached the board about buildings that we would like to see designated landmarks in the path of the Midtown South mixed-use rezoning. And Hell's Kitchen land use and Chelsea land use suggested some buildings. Tomorrow morning at the Landmarks Commission, 5 buildings in the path of MSMX will be discussed as proposed landmarks in a public hearing. If the hearing leads the Landmarks Commission to do so, in a later public meeting where just the commissioners would discuss the buildings, they may be designated landmarks. One of the 5 buildings is within CB4. It's the Lefcourt Clothing Center. And Jesse, I had sent you a couple of emails a little while back. The first one includes an image of Lefcourt. Any chance you could bring it up on screen so we know what we're talking about? It is the big building that takes up the whole block front on the east side of 7th Avenue between 25th and 26th Streets. It's a 1927 to 28 building. I will read you the testimony that we have prepared for tomorrow's meeting. We can't actually send a letter in time. So tomorrow morning, I will read this if we approve before the Landmarks Commission's hearing. And it'll say Community Board 4 strongly supports landmark designation of the Lefcourt Clothing Center. According to the Garment District Alliance, by 1910, the garment industry incorporated around 46% of the industrial labor force in the city. In the book, The City Observed New York, the architecture critic Paul Goldberger said of the Garment District, "This neighborhood is crucial to the city's identity, yet nowhere else in New York is a sense of identity so little expressed as here." That statement highlights the importance of landmark protection for the clothing center. It is one of the district's signature buildings, commissioned by A.E. Lefcourt, a major builder of the district, and designed by its principal architect, Élie Jacques Kahn. The clothing center is contemporaneous with and shares DNA with Kahn's most celebrated building, 2 Park Avenue, which the commission designated an individual landmark in 2006. Like that masterpiece, it features a richly textured brick and terracotta facade with a textile quality that, in this case, is especially appropriate to the garment industry. In the 2006 monograph, Élie Jacques Kahn, Beaux-Arts to Modernism in New York, Jules Stern and John A. Stewart wrote that Kahn's characterization of a skyscraper facade as, quote, a question of clothing would have resonated with his garment district clients. The authors noted that in 1927, the American architectural scene was, quote, electric with the spirit of modernism, in the words of Robert A.M. Stern, and placed the clothing center in that context. The year was a pivotal one in which Kahn finally relinquished his historical predilections and fully embraced a modern idiom. With a Lefcourt Clothing Center, begun at the end of 1927, Kahn turned a corner and never looked back. The building is thus part of a bigger picture of architectural history. With Raymond Hood and Ralph Walker, Kahn was part of a triumvirate of tower designers who shaped New York's international identity as the skyscraping city of the future. The Lefcourt Garment Center is one of his most accomplished works and a character-defining feature of the Garment District. Long home to the International Ladies Garment Workers Union, which built Penn South 2 blocks to the west for its members and their families, the clothing center has a special link not just to the Garment District, but much of Chelsea's modern residential development and social history. As requested earlier, CB4 asks the Commission to also consider designation of 245 7th Avenue, the clothing center's neighbor 1 block to the south. And Jesse, I also sent you an image of that, if we could bring it up. This 1910 to 11 tower by the architectural firm of Squires in Wynkoop has a similar historic association with the garment trade, is in remarkably intact condition, and its uniquely flaring monumental terracotta cornice makes it a Chelsea icon. We're still looking at Lefcourt. You know, it kind of looks like just another big building, but when you see it in person and approach it and really appreciate its detail, you can see how important it is, and much of its significance has more to do with the history of the garment district. Jesse, are you able to find the other image? It's the second email I sent you.
While he brings that up, can we ask if there are any questions?
Any questions?
Outside. Go ahead. Well, I just wanted to ask, like, why do we not know about this until the day before? I guess that's one question. Did you say that there's a hearing tomorrow?
Yeah. Yes.
And then I, for one, am all for trying to protect as many, historic buildings as we can in the garment district before Midtown South redevelopment goes, into full effect.
Yeah, so the timing was that this was taken up by LPC by themselves. So it's not like an application by outside sources. They calendared it. We learned about it. David highlighted it for us. We put it on our calendar. The timing just did not allow. We already had our clue meeting for the month prior. So similar to like BLP, when we have to get something in before time, we want to at least have it go before a committee. So the goal tonight would be for giving a consensus, hopefully a consensus vote, to give David the permission to go ahead and give testimony for tomorrow, and then obviously a letter by the end of the month for the full board. But it would be ratified. Yeah, and there may be other buildings like this because, like David said, there's a number of buildings that they've highlighted to say we're going to do this. Most of them are not in our district. We're pushing back on that and hoping to get more. But when and how they get calendared is not up to us.
Hold on. Other questions?
First of all, I fully support the request to move forward with landmarking this. 100% support of that. But following up on the question of timing, I think that we as a board have always been very careful about saying, I'm from CB4, speaking on behalf of the board at a hearing, because we face this all the time with other projects and the timing. I think I would suggest you work in the intro language a little bit to say to the effect, the Chelsea, this has been something we have put forward in the past years. Chelsea Land Use Committee discussed this last night, and I'm here to say, and then just move on. But don't make it so specifically CB4, because that does kind of violate some precedents that we've had in the past. So I'd urge you to couch the intro a little bit. And second is timing. I've testified a number of times these things. I started with the stopwatch about a quarter of the way into your thing, and it was well over 2.5 minutes that you spoke. So I'd say tighten up your language some, and I'd suggest get rid of the whole second building issue. It's not on their agenda. Let's not cloud it. Let's focus on Lefcourt. Keep your testimony tight and couch the intro.
Should we write a letter about this?
And then we should. We can write a letter, because there isn't the hearing tomorrow is not on the second building, correct?
If I may, there's a reason for mentioning the second building in this letter. We could send a letter to the landmarks chair later, asking for consideration of that building. The problem with that is that none of the commissioners would see it. And very often, in the old days, if you proposed a building as a landmark, the commissioners would see the proposal. They'd see the letter that came from the community. That's no longer the case. So they're completely unaware that certain buildings are suggested by the public for designation. And, they were recently appalled that the lobby of the McGraw-Hill building, for example, had not been nominated or discussed as a landmark designation, an interior designation, even though it had been proposed by the public, but they were unaware of that. So I think it's kind of good just to have this in their consciousness. And, Pamela and I walked around and looked at buildings and came up with some that we thought it would be a good idea for the commission to consider for designation, which is all that we're asking.
Okay, well, I'm going to 100% disagree on the fact that we're raising topics outside of the public hearing. There is a public hearing on an issue. We should address that issue and not bring other discussion. If we want to send another letter from us to the commissioners, we can copy all the commissioners. We can find other alternatives. But your testimony is too long for the time they're going to give you, and you're adding in content that is not on the agenda of the meeting. So I would urge you, and I would urge this committee to vote, to remove the second building from this testimony for tomorrow, but let's add it into future letters. I'm in support of the concept, but I just don't think we're being effective by raising a topic at a hearing that is not on the hearing agenda.
Okay, but just for future reference, we don't have like email addresses or mailing addresses for any of the commissioners.
Can I ask you a point of clarity though? But this other building was part, am I wrong? Or is this other building was part of our admin letter list of other locations that we said that we want to be considered?
Yes.
Okay, so we're on record for saying we want to support this. You're just saying it's not the topic of conversation tomorrow. Got it. Okay, and I don't know, tell me if I'm wrong, of the second building at least, which we don't know the future of. We as a board have not, tell me if I'm wrong, Dave, we have not submitted a request for review or whatever. So we could do that. We could make that, we've done that before with other buildings.
Anybody else? Hold on one second. Anybody else have questions? I see Pam online. So let's do in the room first and then we'll go on. Go ahead.
It's just in furtherance of that. Since we've already identified all of these buildings, David, in Chelsea that, that we want to try to get landmarked, shouldn't we be writing letters on all of them now, like in advance, so that we don't have this problem again? Shouldn't we be making a case for them now, like we always do when we want to try to landmark a building?
Well, okay.
Yeah. All of them. Yeah.
So let me take that under advisement as the chair. Okay. Message received. Okay. Yeah. Sorry. So there has been we've communicated that there are a number of buildings, right? That with the desire to be landmarked, right? You're
Landmarking. Usually when we write a letter about landmarking a building, we get very specific about why it should be landmarked: historical, cultural, architectural significance. So I'm just wondering, do we want to start doing the work to try to talk about each one of these buildings? Yeah.
And on that note, I was suggesting that's something we can take to this committee and decide how to do going forward.
Yeah, what you're talking about is a request for evaluation, which is kind of a big involved thing. I've actually put big pieces of my life into those that we never got a response on, like Bayview, which has been sitting out there for, I think, 15 years. This is a rare instance where the commission has asked the community for buildings it would like to see considered. And maybe if we mention this additional building tomorrow, it'll be in another wave of buildings that are put forward.
Okay.
So
I don't want to continue to retread the same ground. The message has been communicated. We're worried about timing. The message has been communicated to say, stay focused on the particular item that has been identified. Although it has been referenced, we've heard that. The conversation about landmarking going forward, or conversations about the analysis that's required to communicate. As chair, we will take that under advisement because I'm hearing it now and wanting to think about how we do that going forward. Pamela, I see your hand up.
Yeah, here I am. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Sound great.
Well, that's good. Yes, David and I walked around through a lot of Chelsea and looked at a lot of buildings. The building in question that he refers to at the end of the letter is the single, it has my heart, always has, and is the single most architecturally impressive building of the batch. It basically the look of the building, the beautiful, incredible cornice that it has, and the color and the terracotta work. We thought, I think David agrees, that it would just be great to be able to just put it on the radar. And including it in this letter is the way to do that. If the committee disapproves of that, then I guess I would ask that we do everything we can to have that building kept in LPC radar. Okay.
And that's what I'm hearing being communicated now. Yes, Pamela, to your point, it's absolutely valuable to this body to focus on that particular building. But if I'm hearing this correctly, we can get consensus at this particular moment if we move forward with a focus on the particular building that's been identified, and that we will follow up with separate letters or a letter or other letters related to both that second building that was identified and any other listing of buildings that we've talked about focusing on as a landmarking effort.
It's important to remember that they asked us
Okay,
didn't-
but there is an objection right now
We're
on the
not the
table related to the
initiators
second.
of this. They have asked us for this.
Okay, so if we
It's
want
a
to put
good
so
shot.
again, thank you, Pamela.
Sure.
So at this stage, I think we can put a motion on the table and we can, again, just what I'm hearing is we have, if someone wants to put a motion on the table, go ahead and we can have the vote.
Why don't I put the motion on with the deletion of the second? And then if that motion fails, we can then make the motion to approve the letter. All right, so that we can get the vote on whether or not to include the second letter. No, but I'm saying, no, Marty, what I'm saying is this. I'm going to make a motion that says support David's testimony tightened up with the elimination of the second issue, because we're going to tackle that at future meetings. If that motion fails, I will very quickly make a motion to just support David's testimony, and we can vote in favor of the way his testimony is with the second building in it. Okay? So that way we can just choose if we're going to do the second building or not through a vote. So I would like to make a motion that we approve testimony from David Halauka on the Lefcourt building, condensed to 2 minutes time as allocated, with a softer intro indicating consensus of this board or something other than community board takes the position. And so this vote would be on the elimination of the second building in that testimony.
Do we have a second?
No second, motion dies.
The motion has died.
I'll make a second motion to approve David's letter as written with the suggestions that Paul mentioned about tightening up the timing to make sure that we get, we get our testimony in 3 minutes, and the position of the committee versus the community board. Is there a second?
Second. Yeah, just clarify.
That Paul said about like just softening the opening about the, this isn't a decision by the board, because it isn't. We didn't go before the board.
yeah.
Yeah.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Yeah, I need to see people online, by the way. We can't count you without seeing you. Thank you. Shanice, same for you. We need to see folks online.
I see her hand. I see Shanice's hand.
Thank you, Shanice. Thank you. Unanimous? Yeah? No nays? No. Motion passes. Well done. Thank you, everybody. David, thank you very much, by the way. This is your catch and your effort tomorrow morning. Thank you. Much appreciated. Jesse, thank you for telling me how best to navigate this particular segment of this conversation. And I'm going to stick to the idea that there are a series of conversations to be had about landmarking going forward, recognizing that's a lot of work and that may be challenging with all the different projects that we're dealing with, but recognizing the value of the buildings and the spaces and the effort that needs to happen going forward. Fair? Awesome. Okay. Thank you very much. Okay. Now, speaking of hot topics.
Hot topics.
The floor is yours, sir. And by the way, we're going to get into the updates on the CB4 affordable housing plan. We do have slides. Yes?
The deck first.
We need to do the deck. We need to get the deck up. And we are asking at this point for any feedback, right? Any feedback, questions, or otherwise. That's what the purpose of this is. Yeah. Sorry.
I'll say that. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks, everybody. So what's happening from HHHS is that we are working to update the Community Board 4's affordable housing plan. Many of you have remembered a couple of years ago, we did a press tour. During City of Yes, we discovered this district is the highest housing producer in Manhattan of all community districts. So we need to constantly kind of refresh the housing plan. So what we are doing, HHHS has taken the lead. It went through Clinton Hill's Kitchen Land Use Committee for some changes, and then we're having a discussion here. The piece we want to focus on from land use is on the proposed zoning changes that we are we are recommending as a plan. The housing components themselves are being taken up by HHHS. So this is a very condensed presentation on the revisions that are really focused just on the zoning. Next slide. So the reason we have to do this is because things have changed. And so we have the City of Yes passed, and that has some serious impact on our housing issues. MSMX is coming through, and there's a lot of changes going on there. The 421A, the Midtown South mixed-use rezoning that is promoting conversion of commercial to residential, but also given the time it took to plan that out, the density of the buildings that exist is smaller than what the proposed density could end up being. So there's potential for demolition and reconstruction. So we have a lot of concerns around that. There's a 421A, 445X tax exemptions. Those are shifting and moving around, and how the state is providing tax exemption for housing development. And we recently saw the 12 FAR density cap be eliminated, removed. And we're now experiencing applications coming in. Developers are coming in to DCP to say, we want to build something, and DCP is saying, build more. And so we, as a board, have traditionally had a plan in place. And we say, instead of saying no to people, we say, let's look at where it makes sense to have these things. And therefore, we can say to the people where it doesn't make sense, we have a plan and this doesn't make sense, so let's not do these. So we took and looked at all these changes and the progress that's happened on a variety of projects throughout the district. And we're proposing some changes to increase affordable housing production through what we're calling very high density development. And that's sited on the far west side of Manhattan, and mostly through Hell's Kitchen. So the zone, when we'll get through this in a little bit more detail, but if you can go to the next one. We reviewed all the sites for different high density potential. There would be no very high density sites in Chelsea based on the analysis of the changes proposed across the district. So Chelsea won't face any of the potential rezonings that the housing plan would support. In the table below, you can see these are state sites. And you'll see on here, there's the Javits marshalling yards, which we talked about a lot when we were visiting the Western Rail Yards, that maybe that site, and David, I think you particularly brought this up as a possibility for housing development and higher density. We have the Quill Bus Depot on 11th Avenue, the former Hunton Vorhaus campus, and then there's a Department of Corrections parole office. That's new to the housing plan. We have never had this be a part of the housing plan. That's on West 40th Street. It's currently, it was a former warehouse. It's now a parole office on the ground floor. It's a state-controlled site. So one of the things that we're looking at is to say these state-owned sites should be converted for high-density residential, and they should have a high percentage of affordability. One of the things that Hell's Kitchen Clinton Land Use Committee asked that is on state-controlled sites where it's possible to get 100% affordable. So, yeah, Marty. Yep. Do you want to? Okay, yeah, go ahead. Sorry, you can ask. Yeah, just fast.
I just want to ask about this slide. Today's announcement about the Western Rail Yards included an increase in the acreage. Is that increase in the acreage the marshalling yards?
No, the increase in acreage in today's press release was an additional acre of green space because the podium on the north side, I'm sorry to get distracted on this for a second, but it's a good question to ask. It's all brewing fast. The northern platform, the northern podium of the original ULURP application that we saw was one big unit. When it went to city planning, they broke that podium into two, and there's a space between the buildings now that goes from 33rd Street into the center of the park. So there's essentially another acre of green space. Has nothing to do with marshalling yards. All right. But if you look at this chart at the bottom, and it's hard to see on the slide because it's small, but these four sites would generate a total of 6,007 units, and 2,146 of those would be affordable units. So that's 36% of the new housing built would be affordable. And I'm going to come back to that 35% again. If we can go to the next slide, Jesse. So this revisits where those sites are. So you can see the Javits marshalling yards, the parole office, the bus depot, and then the sites on 11th Avenue and West 54th Street. You'll see up at the top those two that are the numbers 4 and 5, 11th Avenue and West 54th Street. That's sort of the prime example of what we mean by the developer came in and is looking for higher density there, and we want to work towards bulk and height restrictions so that the bulk and height are inland and it tapers down as you come towards the river, so we don't have big walls of buildings along the Hudson. So that just shows you geographically where these very high density sites would be from our perspective. And then Jesse, the next. And the other big thing here is, whoops, there we go. This is the Special Hudson Yards District, and you'll see what's outlined in red is areas that are already zoned high density. But currently, the FAR for residential is limited to 6. So what the housing plan recommendation would be in those areas, maintain the same FAR for those buildings, but convert from commercial to residential. So you can get 15 to 18 FAR residential in buildings that are currently proposed at 33, 24, 20, 20, 18, and 18. So we're going to increase the residential component here rather than commercial to put some, and that's where we're saying the predominance beyond those other 5 sites that we saw on the last slide. This is where the predominance of high density housing would be. So we're saying to people, the developing community in particular, if you want to build high density housing, you want to take advantage of the removal of the 12 FAR cap, we don't want it in the Chelsea districts. We don't want it in the special Clinton Preservation District. But if you want to build it, this is where it would make sense to build. So the housing plan is kind of trying to tackle that theme. Next slide, Jesse. That's it. Okay, can you go to the next memo? So Hell's Kitchen Land Use took this up because those 5 very high density areas and the Hudson Yard Zone are technically all within what we consider the Hell's Kitchen for the Hell's Kitchen Land Use Committee. So we had a long conversation about it at the committee, and essentially we said as a committee, we approve the recommended zoning changes, but we needed some language added into the housing plan to update it. And yep, he does. Yeah. Can you change this to that, though? It's in the Dropbox. Can you go to your Dropbox? So what we're basically saying is, with the changes going on because of City Yes, MSMX, the tax codes, all those things, we want some framework put around it. Okay, so we recognize the plan is a good plan. It's helping produce housing in a way that's respectful to our community. It's integrating new housing into the fabric of our community rather than, I mean, you look at something like Billionaires Row on CB5, it's all out of context. So we want to tackle this in a way that puts context into the new housing. And because of these changes, we want to recognize where this makes sense, but we want to address a very important fact. If you add up all of the new housing that could be built under this plan, it's close to 17,000 units of housing across our district. That means you're adding potentially 30,000 people to our neighborhood. So how do you integrate them as people and keep a livable community and a vibrant neighborhood? So we want to really try to tackle some of those issues. And that's really up here in the very second paragraph is how are we going to integrate 30,000 people? And then we go down to these very high density areas. We want high density housing where there's already high density. We don't want high density housing where there's not high density. So that's a very important point. So in these bullets, we show, the first is that we basically, Hell's Kitchen Land Use is sending a note to HHS saying we support the proposed zoning areas to change for high density. One of the things we've asked for, and this came out of the 12 FAR working group, is that anything above 12 FAR residential, so if you go to 15 or 18, which is what the city is now mapping as R11, R12 districts, is that anything above 12 FAR, there should be a higher percentage of affordable units. So where we in the past, I mean, we think about as a board, we're the leaders in creating 30% affordability as a standard. It wasn't like that for many years. We fought and we got it. So what we're suggesting here is that anything above 12, we have a higher percentage, and we may push for 50%. Those numbers may get pushed up, but we'd like to see across the board then, instead of a 30% average, maybe a 35% average of affordability in these very high density spaces. So we're going to push for that. One of the things that comes up often is these buildings get built, and because of secret laws, if they don't have a certain number of new units, it doesn't trigger an analysis. So school seats is driven by the number of units that's built. If you have a building built here with 1,000 units and building built here with 1,000 units, those two buildings wouldn't trigger a school analysis. So, but if you think about them, they're a block apart, that's going to impact schools in our district. So we're asking for cumulative effects regularly being assessed so that we can look at what does this mean when you build 5 buildings and you're adding 2,500 units to a 3-block radius, and how does that impact it? And so we want those to be cumulatively decided. And one of the things we want to think about is in these very high density district buildings where you have a 15 or 18 FAR residential, that there's a commitment for some form of community space in the building. So we're assessing whether we need schools or fire or police or open space. All of those things come into play, and in each time we look at it, we can say, this is where we put a school, this is where we could put a police, this is where we could put EMT, this is where we could put a whole, like we list in here, police, fire, EMT, schools, hospitals, public health facilities, public transit upgrades, and food retail. Those are the important issues that come out of Hell's Kitchen. We look to see if we can't urge that the new housing scales down in height and density as you come west towards the Hudson. So if you'll see, a lot of these places are very close to the Hudson. We don't want to have a community where we have a wall of tall buildings adjacent to the Hudson. If you think about Hell's Kitchen particularly, you have the Clinton Preservation District, 11th Avenue, and right across from the Intrepid site is another state example. They're going to build tall buildings. You're going to have the 6 or 8 story buildings of Hell's Kitchen, and then a wall of 60, 70 story buildings at the Hudson, and then you get to the Hudson River. We want to try to avoid that if we can. And then we ask for the new housing construction to start implementing environmental impact that's forward thinking, not just reliant on today's standards, but to start thinking about how can we build passive housing to attain carbon neutrality? How can we start using Joe and I were at this meeting with HPD doing a presentation on a small half-a-block site for housing, and they were doing geothermal in the building. It's like, this should be our standards instead of just having, following the current 2021 secret technical manual and following those rules. Let's start thinking about better ways of building our buildings. And something that comes up often with our board is, how do we internalize the building itself? So deliveries and waste removal and package deliveries, and Brad, you're here, I'll say drone deliveries. How do we get buildings built to recognize what's happening around us and how we're dealing with our waste issues? We urge that large-scale developments make an positive impact on green space, whether it's on-site or adjacent. This came up because the Clinton DeWitt Park project was on the top of our screen on the earlier slides. That's immediately adjacent to Clinton DeWitt Parks. And we're saying you should be making the park stronger. So how do we do that? And then we look at, how do we make considerations on economic impact? Again, this goes back to, you're going to bring 30,000 people in. We're going to have small businesses that are going to suffer. We want to make sure that if we can put in a wider array of guarantees for local retailers in these big buildings, how do we provide maybe rent stabilization, rent control of a commercial space so that local businesses can stay in the local community? And then how do we have pricing structures that make it so that New York City employees can afford to live in our neighborhood? So let's look at some pricing structures around that, and AMI bans and things like that. And then the final point we make is that a lot of our conversations on housing impact rental. We always talk about the rental units and the rental, almost everything we do. But we want to start having conversations about home ownership issues. So how can we strengthen home ownership and have it be affordable home ownership? So strengthening HDFC programs or figuring out how mandatory and inclusionary housing, the mandatory inclusionary housing on rules for ownership is very different than rentals. And it doesn't really, it creates too many opportunities for somebody to buy something really cheap, a couple of years later, flip it and make a great profit. So we want to try to restrict that and use the HDFC model. So that's kind of what we talked about at Hell's Kitchen land use, and that's what the HHS is going to put forward as some zoning recommendations.
Can I allow for, questions, reactions?
No questions. Vote and approve.
We have questions and reactions. We'll do in the room first and then online. Marty, I saw your hand up. Yes?
Thank you for that. That was neat. Appreciate it. I have three. And the easiest one I think is the home ownership, so I'll do that one first. Is that on the Penn South model, limited equity, where you buy it and you?
That might be a great model. Like we very rarely talk about that sort of model, and I think that's a great opportunity, and that is the kind of model that would make sense. Yes, but I don't know, like how do we start talking about those kinds of programs more often than we do?
Well, we just started talking about it, but it needs a lot more conversation.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. Another thing that needs some more conversation. I'll go backwards because I think about the last one is the one that's going to take the most. You said passive house in the building design. Now, you didn't mean that specifically of the passive house organization, which has passive houses as part of their. It's not the same as LEED. And we had a presentation at Waterfront and Parks a bunch of years ago from the passive house folks. There's an actual organization that specifies what passive house means. You didn't mean that.
Maybe I did.
Well,
what's the question, Marty?
The question is embedded in what I'm saying.
Do you support passive housing or oppose passive housing?
No, I very much support it, but I'm saying that passive house generically is what you were saying, and there's a specific organization called Passive House that does a whole lot of explaining what it is. Find out what that is and see whether it fits into what we're talking about.
Okay, yeah, that's a good suggestion, just to clarify the definition of passive house. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And lastly, the cumulative bit. We have traditionally, I applaud that. Thank you. It's long overdue. When I argued with Joe Restuccia for cumulative, I want to say many years ago, I don't know how many, he said, well, you can't blame the last developer for all of these things and it can't lay it on them. So I'm curious about how much you've talked about the methodology of how you affect the results of cumulative building. I mean, you gave the example of 1,000 unrelated. If this 1,000 goes, it doesn't trigger. If this 1,000 goes, then it doesn't trigger by itself, but once it's 2,000, it should be triggered. There's a question here how you do the procedure.
Correct. No, that is a very important issue, Marty, and because we don't have it, right? So we need to start thinking about how to do that. And I think maybe it's every quarter we reassess all increase in growth in housing units. Maybe it's once a month. Maybe it's development by development. You hit a trigger point and it triggers it. And developers know, we have 1,000 in here, 1,000 here, that's 2,000 that's going to trigger it. I don't know the answers to how to do that, but I think that's the important issue, is right? Because we don't talk about it. There is no policy, there is no guideline. So we want to start having those conversations to see if we can flesh out some of those issues.
So, but just to push that a little further, developer 1 does 1,000, doesn't trigger. Developer 2 does 1,000, it doesn't trigger, but the two together do. So do you get developer 2 or do you bring in developer 1?
You are going so far deeper into the weeds on this than we're ready to have a conversation about. But I think
that's needed.
No, I think it is needed, and that's why we're having this preliminary conversation. So we need to be starting to have those conversations. We need to start thinking about it. And we know, for example, like as leadership of land use committees, both committees, applicants come in all the time, way ahead in advance of when they're going to do it. So maybe we start thinking about it ourselves and say, We know this project's coming. Like I know 5 projects that are coming into Hell's Kitchen. So maybe if I'm given as leadership of the land use committee from Hell's Kitchen to be able to say, this is going to trigger an analysis because it's now the CBS studios, the 57th Street site, the Clinton DeWitt Pike. Like I know that there are 4 of them coming in. So maybe I start saying that at the meetings and say, this will require an analysis of school seats. We're going to be looking for an EMT station in this site and just start thinking about the cumulative impacts. But I think you're right. If we had a technical way that we could do it that's more rigid, that would make a lot more sense. But I don't have the answer to that.
For the
And
funding.
who's responsible for that? Is it
Funding.
DCP? Yeah. All right. No, but that we don't have it now. So we want to start raising these topics.
Other questions in the room?
Yeah.
I have a question about Fulton Elliot Chelsea. With the, I know we don't know with City of Yes but how does that not potentially be a very high density project?
Excellent question.
So, I mean, do we need to talk about that as a part of this, or do we need to, I know this is like next topic, but also related.
I mean, I think yes is the answer to the question generically. How do we integrate what is currently a proposal for Fulton Elliot Chelsea and the number of units that the potential ULURP will generate?
Correct.
And at this point, there hasn't been any discussion about Fulton Elliot Chelsea increasing the residential density above 12, as far as I'm aware.
But they certainly peppered that throughout.
They certainly could, and I think that's
mentioned that they could
right.
many times.
And I think so yes, I think that we should be paying attention to that. So whether we add that to the housing plan or not?
I know, I mean.
I'll definitely bring this back to Joe for that.
Okay.
Yeah, because that's a terrific question.
And my second question is, I'm going to play Bert for a second and be like, why are we stopping at 35% affordability? Why aren't we going for 50 and then getting 35? So why don't we go for 50?
Yeah, no, I think that the stuff of the density above 12 there's nothing set that we're saying any numbers right now, right? Like we say, like for example, the parole site is a state-controlled site. We're saying state-controlled sites should be 100% affordable, right? Like Bayview. Bayview is a great example as to how a state-controlled site should be 100%. Now, can that actually be done or not? And can that be done on private property is even less likely. But the number 35 came from, if we ask for 50% from 12 to 15 or 12 to 18 FAR, then the average hits 35. But we may have to ask for higher at those higher numbers in order to get to that 35. Right. So the average would hit 35, but not the entirety. Yeah, I think that we're the language that a lot of people are saying is 50% above, and that's from the 12 FAR working group. So we've been talking about that for a while. But how do we get developers to build something? We can't, if we say to developers build 100% affordable on private lands, we won't see any housing. So
that's okay.
Yeah, we have to be realistic.
Okay. Other questions in the room?
Just real quick, I know you mentioned about waste management, but as far as sewage, because I attended a meeting recently with the Hudson River Park Council, and there was discussion, a big presentation about they were going to incorporate secondary sewage treatment facilities along with the ones that are already existing. But the issue is that, there's side effects to that, obviously, because there could be contamination in the Hudson, even though they're saying they're going to mitigate that. So there's a whole bunch of other issues involved with that. I mean, obviously, with the incoming high-density population, you're going to have a lot more waste, obviously. And that's going to affect the environment as well. And honestly, the wastewater, when it rains and we have, torrential hurricanes or anything of that sort, we have backflows. I mean, basically. So I believe we're trying to implement new technologies to, curtail this kind of results, but I don't think it's a mandatory thing yet with all these new developments, where they're forced to actually implement them as a part of the deal, the
Yeah,
package.
I think you're absolutely right that actually none of this housing plan that we have is a rule or a force.
Yeah.
It's a guideline for us to use when we look at new developments coming along. And it's a guideline that we put forward to the development community. As a matter of fact, the borough president is pulling together a group of people to work on a Manhattan plan to target housing development. We have been asked specifically to make sure that we're in attendance at those meetings because we're the only board with a housing plan. And so these are guidelines more for us than for anybody else. But and also keep in mind, any of these high density housing things will have to come through. There's currently nothing that's zoned R11 or R12. Anything that's mapped as R11 will have to come through a rezoning process, will have to come to us. So we're going to have a say in all of these issues as it moves forward, and this is a good roadmap for us to use. But to specifically address the sewerage issue, one of the things that we push a lot for, and Marty will attest to this, is that we, in new buildings, look for separation of water, wastewater and stormwater is treated differently so that the sewage goes into sewage pipes and wastewater runoff goes someplace else so the sewer system doesn't back up and dump into the Hudson. And we have been talking about that a lot with a lot of our newer developments all the time. So I think it's a good guideline and we should definitely focus on that.
Just to comment on that point, please. I'm sorry, am I giving you a hard time?
You have 15 seconds, go.
The separation of stormwater from sewage runs into the cumulative process
Correct.
issue again.
100% agreed. Thank you, Marty.
All right, anybody else in the room? Question. Okay, online. Let's go. Josephine first. Josephine, questions, reactions, go ahead.
Okay, sure. Thank you. Conversation about additional recreational spaces like swimming pools, just a place where people, you're talking about adding 30,000 people to the community. What resources are there for affordable fitness classes, like the Chelsea Rec Center and the YMCA? Are we just relying on the YMCA? Is that where everyone is planning on going?
Josephine, I think that's great. What we can add then is some language in here. We have a list of issues like public health facilities, green space. Let's add in community facilities. Just sounds too generic a word, so maybe community recreational facilities. Let's come up with we have a list of all those issues that we're putting in, like EMT, fire, police. Let's add in recreational facilities. I think that's an important point. Yeah.
Thank you.
Brad.
Hey, guys. Paul, thank you for that letter or our guidelines, which I've read before. I am so excited about what's been added in there, from the environmental that we've always asked for, from the added housing. I just want to thank you guys and Joe putting that together in the whole Clinton housing. I am just blown away to see that it's there, and thank you. And I understand it's a guideline, and every deal is a deal. So I understand that. Thank you.
Thanks, Brad.
Okay, next round, go ahead.
Is there any mention of open space that like maps to this?
We don't specifically mention open space directly on this. What we say is on these developments, they should make a commitment to enhancing open, not just open space. I'm sorry, we use green space more than open space because open space is different from green space. We've learned that the hard way at Hudson Yards. So we do say buildings should, like, for example, we had one building, the bus terminal, the Quilt terminal. That's a full block building. And there was a discussion about should we insist on some green space in the middle of that block somehow? And the functionality of the bus terminal, if that's built, the buses will be on the ground floor, and that will continue service, and the way the buses come in and rotate through and everything, and then the residential would be built above it. There's really no functional way to put green space on that site. Whereas the CBS studios on 57th Street, that there's a conversation about that entire block being rebuilt, that has opportunities for green space because the layout of the buildings could be separated. And then DeWitt Clinton Park facility, the park is immediately adjacent to it, and the people moving in there will be using that space, so there should be enhancements to that green space. But again, as Brad just pointed out too, it's site by site we have to look at.
But if you're going to add, or not but, let's say we add 30,000 people to our neighborhood. I mean, maybe, sorry if I should know this. Is there a trigger for how many people per how many acre of green space? I mean, it feels like there is. Okay.
There is, so I'm hearing that there is some sort of formula, but we don't exactly know what it is, but there's a formula.
But there is a trigger. So to look in the cumulative, maybe in the cumulative impact section, make sure that it's, because we were looking at it as new development sites should address green space issues on each site. But you're saying the cumulative, within the cumulative analysis, Marty's asking, how's that going to work? Right? Like that we include something about green space as that conversation as well. Yeah, that makes sense.
Right.
So for those of you online, Carrie's saying it could be cumulative impact. Every building might not add green space. So if we don't look at it in the cumulative analysis, we may not get it.
Any other questions? Sounds to me like at this point we can close the conversation.
Well, should I make, because we should have Chelsea Land Use send a note to HHHS supporting the proposed zone changes that are all happening in Hell's Kitchen anyway. But the two languages that we already have in place, we want to add the Fulton Elliot Chelsea housing plan concerns, sewer wastewater issues, recreational facilities, and green space analysis to the cumulative impacts.
I'd like to make a motion to do what Paul just said.
All those in favor? Online, make sure we can see you on the vote. Thank you. Yeah, Mike, are you hand up or no? Couldn't see it, sorry.
Yeah, I am. I can't see myself.
Okay, we got you. We
there
can
I
see
am.
now. We can see now.
Okay, good.
Any, I think it's unanimous there. Is that correct, Jess? It looks like we're unanimous.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Don't worry, Mike, you look good.
Okay.
I needed that, Brad. I needed that.
We're now in the old new business section, but yes, go ahead. You can start out there.
On page 5 of one of the documents is shown the number of affordable housing units that there are in the area.
Yeah, just get the
these
clarity.
tables, these what are they
Wait, hold
called?
on. Which
pie
document is this?
charts.
The affordable housing plan pie chart. Sorry, we're done. Yeah, go ahead, Marty. Go ahead.
I think it's a remarkable document. It shows very few below 40% AMI, and it lists the amount of affordable housing that we have in this district, and it's worth keeping in front, because we've had conversations about adding to the middle level of AMI, and this table is showing me anyway that we really need to start focusing on the lower levels of AMI to build housing in this area. And it's in our own document. I just felt I needed to bring it to your attention.
Reminding us to take a close look at that document. As you pointed out, Paul, the guidelines matter here. It's good for us to have the points to reflect on and react to. Marty, thank you very much. We're now in the old new business section. I do have one quick update I wanted to make, just as a bit of a recap, and then depending on whether or not there's any other business, we can move into executive session. But let me just note a couple things very quickly. Since our last convening in this room, there have been multiple two in-person hearings facilitated by NYCHA, one at the Fulton Community Center, one at Hudson Guild. Credit to those of you who are part of this committee and part of this board that were present at those conversations related to the FEC development. I know there were folks online as well that attended the Councilmember Botcher, NYCHA's CEO, Lisa Bova Hyatt conversation as well. I think that at our last board meeting, we took the time to listen to the public commentary related to the DEIS, and those thoughts and reactions were accommodated and included within the document. And I credit everyone around in this room and outside of this room for the effort that was made to produce a response to the environmental impact that I think leads with the idea that this is not us approving anything. This is us reacting to what has been provided. And we put together 36 pages of response related to this project. And I just want to acknowledge at this particular moment that I think everything we heard at public hearings has been included. Everything that NYCHA and HPD had not followed up on was included. We responded to the comments that we didn't have feedback on. I think we responded and reacted as well to things that we heard during in-person hearings and otherwise. I was present along with a handful of others at the recent Fulton Tenant Association meeting. Essence and Related were present at that time. The room was that meeting was happening at the same time actually as the mayor was doing a town hall in another part of the city, in another part of Chelsea. And in that conversation, Essence and Related laid out pretty much the same slides that we had seen and been seeing about the timeline related to this particular project. And the first thing they sort of flagged was the expectation that they had is that they are going to get a response to the environmental impact draft. When they get the final, they will react to that related to the mitigation or expectations. But they had identified that it would be the summer is when they identified that the project would commence or phase one would commence. And that included the relocation of individuals who are currently in buildings that are scheduled for the first phase. I'm just flagging that. This is not me saying this is approving, disapproving. This is me saying, as a body, we have been active in asking questions, responding to questions. We responded to the DEIS. We have been present at meetings as they have happened. I do want to note two things. One, that we have not gotten in the way in any way, shape, or form, I would suggest, of this project. What I mean by that is there have been things that have been produced by NYCHA and others that we have asked questions about, but there was a comment made during the public hearing that we were somehow getting in the way or interrupting ULURP. That's not even, and Jessica, our board chair, identified at that moment that that's not even, we're not in that conversation at all at this particular moment. I want to highlight that. I also want to note for you that the town hall that was referenced earlier, if I understand correctly, there's no progress at this point, Jesse, on the town hall. Let's just do that while we're here.
We're still working on a date. I will be able to hopefully solidify a date in the next week or so. Yeah, so we are working on a date. And again, with the idea, the reason why it is taking the time it is taking is because the goal of this, as written in our letter, was to host a town hall to invite and have the electeds be there to hear the public and answer questions. So if we all know the schedule, the state's electeds who are still up in Albany dealing with the budget, pretty much 5 days a week, or 4 days a week. We are also trying to include our council member and our Manhattan Borough president. So,
thank you, Jesse, for that update. And I know that as soon as there is any additional information, that will be communicated by you and the chair.
Yes. I will just like to highlight one thing that, again, this is slight stuff, but a comment was made in reference to that, asking about the date of that town hall by an individual giving public session who was quoting our council member about an entirely different process, an entirely different project. So they were quoting our council members' comments about a recent draft scope of work that was released for a different casino site than the Western Rail Yards, and speaking about how that site and its notice about the draft environmental impact statement and the draft scope was not given enough notice. That is not the case, I will just say, with what just happened with NYCHA's draft environmental impact statement hearing. Those are all given proper notice. Those were put out way in advance with hearings that were actually rescheduled and then renoticed. So I'm not, again, that's just factual.
Thank you very much. So again, in the realm of old business, I think this body, this committee, and this board has been active in seeking to ask questions, respond to questions, take the due diligence that it takes to be able to be responsive to this massive project, the FEC project, and all of its different iterations. And I say that largely because I am very grateful and appreciative of this committee and this board and the community that has been present, because for as tense and complicated as this has been, as much as it is charging up lots of different reactions and feelings, we are present over and over and over again to try to figure out how to make the right commitments and how it is that we can go forward in a way that is respectful of, I think, our community in all the ways that that's possible. That's just frame of reference for how it is that we have been doing and how I hope that we continue to go forward together. On that note, I don't have any other old or new business at this particular moment, so the floor is open for that purpose. Mike there.
Thanks. Greg, can you share the preamble to the DEIS that was written in response to Viren's statement at the last meeting?
I can pull it up here.
Someone can just share the letter.
Letter should not be interpreted as an endorsement of or opposition to any specific development alternative, including the proposed development or rezoning scenarios. MCB4 reserves its right to take a formal position on the broader project through the ULURP or other public review process. That was the segment that was built off of what Viren put forward.
Okay, one other piece of new business. I noticed the sidewalk sheds sprinkled around among Fulton and Elliot Chelsea, and I went onto the Department of Building website to see what they might be about. It turns out that 16 of the 18 Fulton and Elliot Chelsea buildings have active violations for failure to file facade inspections, almost all of them dating back to early 2022. And I'd like to make a motion for a letter to elected officials, to Chris Banks, who heads the City Council's Oversight Committee on NYCHA, and to the Attorney General's office pointing this out for consideration at full board.
I don't have any, I don't know if there's any comment or questions on that. That item, by the way, was included in the DEIS. But I just wanted you to know that. But
right, this would be a separate letter to
understood.
These
understood.
recipients.
Questions, reactions? I don't have any issue with that.
Anyone to second the motion?
Yeah. Pamela, I see Pamela's hand up as a second. All those in favor? No objection. Opposed? Any abstentions? Present not eligible.
Here.
Two present not eligible. Good. Go ahead. Yeah, you need about mic.
Just for clarity's sake, can we confirm what we're asking in this letter?
We're simply informing the elected officials of this, that NYCHA is, they are in violation and they're neglecting the buildings. We could also state that the DEIS, it actually dismissed the rehabilitation and infill alternative, partly on the grounds that it would be too difficult to perform the facade inspections, well, that difficulty actually grows out of the fact that they haven't been doing them. And then, of course, it eventually becomes more difficult.
So I received this comment from you previously. We've now done a vote and it's been approved. To your question about what this is, narrowly focused on that particular piece that has not been responded to, we voted and agreed that that's what we're saying. I will take on this letter. Okay? Thank you. Any other new business? Okay, we're at 9:05. And I think it would be beneficial that we slip into executive session and it can be very short. It's going to have to be for the sake of timing. But I do feel like we need to transition to executive session. When I say executive session, what that means is that we do ask any non-board members to exit and we have a conversation with this particular committee about the topic at hand, which in this case is regarding planning efforts to support an informed committee position on Fulton Elliot Chelsea redevelopment. On that note, I think we can close the non-executive session portion of the meeting. Motion, sorry. Thank you. Thank you.
I'll make a motion to move into executive session.
Second.
Thank you. On that note, we'll move to executive session. Oh, all those, I'm sorry. All those in favor, sorry. Board members should be able, well, it should be, it's a committee conversation. Board members should be able to attend but can't weigh in. All those in favor? It's the chair prerogative. Opposed? No? Unanimous? Okay, thank you very much. Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry, yes, we got to go on mic now. Thank you, everyone. We'll now switching to executive session. Yeah, how do we do?
So everybody online who is a board member, you will stay on. Everybody that is not a board member, I will be removing you, or you can leave on your own. And then we will be stopping the live feed for that portion of time. We will then come back out of executive session whenever, and Greg will give a very brief summary of if anything has been decided or actions taken or anything like that. Maybe not at all.
So we need to be on mic because of them, right? Well, you're going to tell us when you're ready.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. We'll wait till we have the online situated.